Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Katelyn and I like to film eyeshadow palette, ranking, and review videos, as well as the occasional other content sprinkled in. So if you like indie makeup, if you like eyeshadow palettes, if you like me, I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button because I post 2 videos every single week. At least I have been. I am due with my child any day now, so we'll see when that break will come. I will post something on my community tab just to let you all know, because I might disappear for a little bit. But anyways, for those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again, and I am excited for today's video. So this video was inspired by a series that Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner and Betty Jean like to do, which I think it was Annette's idea originally, but it's the ranking my last 10 eyeshadow palettes. Katie Marie did a palette Palooza type video where she goes through her palettes and shares the looks that she did. So I'm pulling that in, but essentially we're ranking the last 10 palettes. If you saw my recent live video that I also posted, it is where I went through my spreadsheet for the purposes of doing these rankings, and that's what we're gonna use to talk about today. And we're gonna look through the looks that I did with each of these palettes, and yeah, let's go ahead and get on into it. So in the number 10 spot, we have my Viseart Petit for Praline Epice palette. This is what, it's a quad. This is what the little quad looks like. I do feel like you can kind of see how reflective and metallic those shimmers are right there. But this one is in 10th place. It has a score of 58.06% using my scoring system. We are going to talk through what the scoring stuff is in a second, but let me give you some information on this palette. So this palette has talc and mica as ingredients, a 36-month open container. Nothing about pressed pigment, so I believe this is just an eyeshadow palette. This is made in the USA. There are 4 shades, you just saw that. And I used it twice. My brain is not working. Anywho, going through my scores. So as far as shadow quality goes, I gave this one a 4 out of 10. I feel like there was absolutely no creasing or fading. This matte blended fine. So it was a 4 out of 5 because both aren't exceptional, but I think the shimmers are really nice. They don't enhance texture. For what they're supposed to be, they're doing what they're supposed to do. So 4 out of 5 on that. Blendability, I did put a 3 solely because you only have the one matte shade. And so trying to build it on itself and blend it out with itself is, it's not happening. Like you can build and create depth with it, but it's challenging. So there's really only one way to blend it, and that's to just slap this one shade on. So that's why I gave it a 3. There's only one matte. And then longevity, I also gave a 3. Oh, the 3, sorry, I forgot that we switched to a scale from 1 to 5, we switched to a scale of 1 to 3. So this has top longevity. There was no issues because I was like, why did I only give it a 3? I don't remember any creasing. Okay, packaging, I gave a 3. I really like the Petit 4 packaging because it's adorable. That's why I can't stop buying these. I in no realm need them, and they're not something that I reach for a ton, but they're so cute. I just want to have them. Anyways, so I really like the packaging. There is no mirror, but it does have the magnetic pan. So it's as far as packaging goes, it's pretty basic, but it's cute. So we're giving it a 3 out of 5. I paid full price for this palette at $25 US, which breaks down to $6.25 per shade, which is kind of the most expensive. I think dollar per shade, price point that I have. I don't know in my whole collection, but at least that I've accumulated so far this year. So there is that. It is also, it's a quad, so it's one of the smallest palettes I have. So we have a net weight of 6 grams, and then it's 0.21 ounces per shade, I believe is how that breaks down. And then shipping time overall took 5 business days to get to me, so not bad. And the shipping cost was $5. So also not terrible. We have 2 formulas in here, obviously the shimmers and the mattes. Let me pull this open again. There is these three shimmers are the same shimmer formula from Viseart. There's no differences between the three of them. So you just have different shades of that same shimmer. As far as inspiring creativity goes, I gave this one a 1 out of 5 because it is a neutral quad. So there's really only so much you can do with it. Versatility, I did bump up to a 2 just because you can do like a little bit of like a smoky look if you just use these two shades down here, or you can have it be a little bit brighter, or you can use all of them. So I feel like, you know, there is a tiny bit of variety to it, but it's really not a lot. So 2 was the best I could do there. Usability or practicality, I put as a 2, which is just speaking to what I just talked about, which is like you could do like a sultry, like more glam look, or a super quick and easy look. What I wanted to give for usability or practicality is that you can make this like a really soft neutral look and just use the matte, or what you can do is create like more of like a glam look by building the matte on itself. And so while that was tricky to do, I was able to do it, so that's where I gave it an extra point. I might have been being nice, but anyways, that's where we're at. Let's take a look at the looks that I did. So the first look that I'm pulling up here is I just used this palette. I did want like a tiny bit more depth, so I brought in an eyeliner and smudged that along the crease. But I thought the finished look was really beautiful, especially with the red lip. It's just like a class, like the shades in here are just classic. So, you know, it is what it is. It's beautiful. I liked it. It does what I think it's intended to do. Here's the second look that I did. This look counts as like a half a look because I combined it with the Cashmere Charmeuse palette, but I thought that they paired really nicely together. The matte in this palette worked really nicely with the mattes in that palette, and then I felt like the shimmers combined nicely. I also pulled in some Danessa Myricks flakes, but I just feel like this is a good, like, who is this for? This is going to be for somebody who doesn't really want to like think through or have like any hard time figuring out what to do with their makeup. They want it just kind of figured out for them. Or you're somebody who does like 2 and done or 1 and done eyeshadow looks and you want them to be neutral. Like, I think that is who this would be for. I could see myself traveling with it just because it would be a really easy palette to travel with, especially if you're bringing, like, say you're bringing a more colorful palette and you're like, I just want to bring like a few neutrals just in case I want to do a neutral look. Like, I could see just throwing that in your bag as like a backup. Like, if I'm packing my hospital bag, like this might be what I would throw in my hospital bag just on the off chance I want to have like just a little something happening. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. With the versatility of this palette, I did want to highlight that you can apply the shimmers in a way that they look like really soft and subtle, and you can get them really wet and metallic and increase the foliage of them. I think foliage, I don't know that that's a word, but you can have like them be like soft, subtle, lightly sparkly, and then you can have like bam, metallic. So that also was part of the versatility. But anyways, that's it for number 10. Moving on to number 9. It's the Viseart Petit for Tyrian palette. This one I gave a 67.74%, so it did score higher than its counterpart in the Praline Epice. This is what the palette looks like, or quad looks like. Same thing as what we just said. I don't want to be like repetitive, but all the talc mica, open container, made in the USA, that's all the same. Same shipping time, shipping cost, like everything that I just said applied for this one because I ordered them together. The mattes in this palette blended so nicely. Like, they worked together so well. Oh gosh, they were so pretty together. I went into this being nervous because the two mattes are like, there's a high contrast, right? Like, you have this really light one and this really dark one. But if I went in, like tapped in between the two to get something more in the middle, it worked so well. It was such a gorgeous color. I was so surprised by how these, I shouldn't have been surprised because Viseart has great mattes, but when you have such a high contrast between the two, you're sort of like, ooh, I don't know. Anyways, so shadow quality, I gave this a 4. The mattes, 10 out of 10. The shimmers I liked, but they weren't like, they didn't blow me out of the water in addition to the mattes blowing me out of the water. So I couldn't give it a 5, but the mattes are amazing. The shimmers are good. So 4 is where we landed. The blendability on this, I gave a 5 out of 5 because like I just said, I was shook with how easy the light and like just the high contrast between the two. It really surprised me how well they blended. And then longevity, a 3 on this one as well. Viseart doesn't really have creasing or fading at all on me. They last all day. They're kind of my go-to brand if I'm wearing a look into the office and I don't want it to like have any chance of like looking messy throughout the day. I'm gonna wear a Viseart palette. So there is a slight difference to this one in the variety in formulas. This shade up here is actually a topper, not a shimmer. So you have the topper, the shimmer, and the 2 mattes. So we have 3 formulas in here, which I think is what makes me like this one slightly more than the Praline Epice. There's a little bit more variety to it. Obviously, you also have 2 mattes, which gives you a little bit more to work with as well. As far as inspiring creativity, I did put this at a 1 again, because when I initially looked at it, I was like, cool, I'm gonna put those mattes in the crease and then the shimmers on the lid, and then that is it. Like there's only one look to do. You could do different shapes, but it's gonna essentially look the same. But as I played around and used it, I feel like the versatility, I gave it more of like a 3 because I think you can do a super dark smoky glam look, but then you could also just do a smoky look with just these shades. You can do just these 2 here. You can do these 3. Like I just think there was more combinations than what I initially thought. Usability or practicality, I did give a 2 just because, I mean, your look's gonna be like purple leaning, right? Like it's all gonna sort of look the same, but I think you can do different things with it. This palette, I used the same amount of time. So I used it for 1.5 looks, but 2 times is how many times I've used it. And it, oh, one thing I should have mentioned, it took me 6 days to use every shade in this palette, which there's only 4 shades, and each look I did with each of the quads used all 4 shades. So it basically took me from the time that I got this palette in my hands to the time I put it on my eyes was 6 days. And this one was 5 because I reached for it first. So there you go. What else? Oh, so now let's look at the looks. So looking at the looks, I want to talk about this. So the first look is the one that I was talking about where I blended the 2 mattes together. Like, look at that blend. I mean, come on. It turned out so good. And I liked that this was more subtle, but you have the toppery shade. But then I worked in liner and then melt glitter on the, like the glitter, whatever, from the Viseart collab. And so I had like a glittery liner that made that more special. I don't know, I just really liked how that look turned out. What I wanted to highlight on this next picture, because obviously this look isn't done, but if you look at, there's one eye that looks slightly more sparkly than the other one. I just wanted to show what the topper looks like. I was using a different palette. I don't remember off the top of my head which one. Actually, no, I combined it with the Violette Vespertine palette. So I was using the Violette Vespertine palette. I tapped some of the topper shade over what I had going on, and I feel like there is a noticeable difference. There is a pink tone to this topper, so it did change sort of the tone of the shimmer shades on the lid, but it also brought the sparkle. Obviously, I'm in studio lighting. It wasn't as noticeable as like when I was in my car or lower lighting. You could see the sparkle more, but that's that. And then here's the finished look that I did with that one. But yeah, I really, really liked how that topper worked as a topper. Did what it was supposed to do. Next up, we have one of the palettes I was gifted in PR. This is the Oden'S and Judy collab, the Spring Dragon palette. This is what the palette looks like. Absolutely gorgeous, mostly pastel color story with some neutrally shades in there, I would argue. So for this palette, I gave it a 70.97%. So let's talk through the information and the scores. So this palette is made in China, another 36-month open container, cruelty-free. There is mica and talc in the ingredients. One thing I want to highlight with the packaging that made me super, super happy is that their prior palettes, when they did the first iteration of the Legendary Diversa collection with these 3, I was going to say characters, but they're people. With these 3 creators, that's what I was going to say. That's what my brain had changed creators to characters, but creators was what I was looking for. Anyways, with these 3 creators, they had like a sandpapery texture, and if you watch any of my videos, you'll know I keep the sleeves on those palettes solely because I hate that texture. I hate it. That texture is gone. So I really love the packaging solely because that texture is not there anymore. The artwork is so beautiful. Like, I mean, look at how gorgeous Judy looks. I mean, come on. And then the dragon. Ah, and then the like little sparkles here. They kind of, when you tilt it a certain way, it sort of changes in the light, which I just think is super pretty. Okay, and I already said made in China, so let's go through, we'll go through my different categories. So shadow quality. I gave this one a 4 as well. I might want to revamp my, there's a lot of 4s for quality, but I mentioned this in my live video, but I said that, like, I was curious if there was really even any, like, bad eyeshadow palettes out there anymore. I feel like quality is all pretty, like, 3 out of 5 and higher. You know what I mean? Like, usually there's not, like, there's like the occasional palette that's a total dud, but I feel like most palettes are pretty solid, especially if you're buying indie. Anywho, 4 out of 5. And really, there was nothing wrong. It just, like, neither the shimmers or the mattes in this palette really, like, blew my mind, but both are really good. So I didn't know how, I kind of struggled with how to rate that, because I have 5 out of 5 for me has to be, like, blew expectations out of the water, both from a matte and a shimmer standpoint. Every single shade is gorgeous, amazing, the most amazing thing ever. And this is good. Like, these are good. Like, I really, like, I want to try and convey that as best as I can. These shimmers are good. The mattes are really good as well. But it didn't, like, blow my mind. So that's where we landed, 4 out of 5. Blendability, I gave this one a 3 solely because we have mostly pastel shades, and when you try to build pastels onto each other, it doesn't go well. You're gonna get, like, some patchiness and things like that. I feel like the pastels, the first look I did, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put that up right now. The first look I did, you can see where I transitioned from shade to shade. They all blended together nicely, but I don't think they build on each other. So I wanted to give it a 3 because I feel like there's really only one way to blend these together. I don't think you can do, like, a darkest to lightest, lightest to darkest, because they're all mostly similar tones. I did do a look with the pink shades, and I didn't take a picture of it because I was in a hurry. I didn't really like how that look turned out. I don't know. There was just something about it, and I'm sorry because I don't have a picture, so I can't, we can't discuss it together, but it was just like, I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite. So there we go. Longevity, I gave this a 3 out of 3. I had absolutely zero creasing both times, and I wore both looks for a while, and no creasing, no fading, everything worked fine. Packaging, I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. It's very pretty. 5 out of 5 for me is, like, the most beautiful or unique thing I've ever seen. And they did this type of packaging 3 times. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the most unique thing ever, but I do think it's really pretty. I think there's a ton of details, like little details to the packaging that make it really gorgeous. So had to give it a 4, but I just felt like it wasn't quite at the 5. I was gifted this in PR, so I didn't pay anything for it. And the cost per shade is $3.08, so per shadow. So we go from $6.25 to $3.08, so just want to point that out. Net weight on this palette is 14.5 grams or 0.51 ounces per shade, I believe is how that breaks down. I don't know the shipping time since I was gifted this in PR. They didn't notify me when the palette ships, like when the collection shipped to me, so I have no idea on shipping time, so I'm sorry I don't have that info. I also don't know how much shipping would have cost had I ordered it. There are 3 different formulas in this palette. So you have the matte, the shimmers, and then there's a metallic. And the metallic is this shade. I think that's long. There's a accent over the O, so I could be mispronouncing that. But the metallic feels, this metallic feels closer to a satin, but it's slightly, I'm gonna swatch it just for the sake of, I'm just gonna wanna compare it for you guys. Okay, so we have dew here, and then this is long, because it's more metallic than a, okay, so that's dew. Do you see, I mean, that's a light, really light shimmer shade, but do you see how sparkly that is? And then long, it's not, it doesn't have the same sparkle. It's definitely a different formula, but it feels slightly more metallic than a satin, but it's not quite as sparkly as I would count like their other formula, but they refer to their other formula as shimmers, and then the more, that shade long is referred to as a metallic on the site. So anyways, as far as inspiring creativity, I think this palette, I mean, you're gonna get a pastel look with it, or like the pinky neutral look, and like I said, I did the pinky neutral look and I didn't really like it. So I think you're getting pretty much a pastel look with this palette. So while I could do different kinds of pastel looks and get different sorts of colorful pastel looks, I really think there's only one kind of look that you're gonna get. So for me, I feel like inspires creativity. I gave it a 3 out of 5 just because I think you could play around with color in here. The versatility of it, I gave a 3 out of 5 just because I can think of different looks, but they all sort of look the same in that they're all going to be like pastel. And then usability or practicality, I gave it 2 just because like I could figure out what to do with this, and that's a pastel look. 1 out of 3 for the usability practicality is like, I have no idea how to do this, so that's why it has a 2. Next up, we have the Wicked Widow Beauty Lovesick palette. So this is number 7 out of 10. Here is the inside of the palette. Super pretty. I did not do a dedicated video with this palette, but I did use it in a makeup diaries, so you can see a look with this palette if you're interested. I will link the dedicated videos to all of the other palettes down below if they have them. If not, I should have them in a makeup diaries, and you can, that will be linked down below. But anyways, the packaging on this, adorable. It's so cute. I really like the packaging design. I think it's really cute. This palette is vegan and cruelty-free. There are talc and mica in the ingredients. 24-month open container. It doesn't say where this is made on their website or on the packaging, so I don't know. I'm going to assume China, but I'm not sure. The palette itself costs $32.40. That's what I paid for it. I did use a code. The cost per shade is $4.50. So if you break down the full price, not including the discount code that I used, and divide it by 8, it's $4.50 per shade. And so this one's in between the cost of the Oden'S and the Viseart palettes for cost per shade. And then the weight of the shadows in the palette, I don't know. It doesn't say anywhere on here or on their website what the net weight is, so I don't know. Shipping time, it took 4 business days to get to me, so a little bit faster than the Viseart palettes. And shipping cost, I paid $7.90 to ship this palette to me, so a little bit more expensive. This will not be the most expensive shipping. We will find out which palette had the highest shipping soon. So let's talk through the palette. So shadow quality, I gave this one, again, it's a 4 out of 5. I really should probably figure out my rating system so that there's a little bit more nuance here. But I felt like the mattes all blended really nicely and the shimmers are beautiful. So it's again one that it's like, the shimmers more blue, like were special to me in this one, and the mattes were good, but nothing was like out of this world amazing to make me feel like it needed to be higher, but I thought both were good. Like, this is solid formulas for both. Blendability, I did give a 4 out of 5. I don't feel like the mattes blended themselves, but I also don't feel like I had to spend a ton of time working on blending out the mattes, so that's where I landed. And longevity, I gave a 3 out of 3 because I don't think there was really any issues with longevity on any of the looks I used this twice. Neither of the looks that I did. Packaging, I'm giving a 4 out of 5 just because it's not like the most unique thing I've ever seen, but it is beautiful. It has a nice mirror. I do believe the pans are magnetic, I want to say. Let me check. Palette is magnetic. So you have magnetic pans, the mirror. It's a cute size. I think the design and artwork on it's really cute. So it's a 4 out of 5, but it's just not quite the most special thing I've ever seen. So that's what I'm saving the 5 out of 5 for that. Formula, we have 3 different formulas. We have obviously the mattes, and then there's duochrome shades in here and multi-chrome shades. I don't know how many of which. It just says 4 duochrome / multi-chromes. So I don't know. I think I would argue that this is one of the multi-chromes. I don't know if Goodnight Moon would be. I think these 2 would be considered duochromes, but yeah, anywho. Inspiring creativity, I gave this one a 3 out of 5, just because I felt like I could do something really lavendery. I could go more pinky with it. I could do something more neutral. I could pair the lavender with the neutral, or I could pair the lavender with the pink. Like, I just felt like there was some variety to it, even though it only had 8 shades in it. And then versatility, I kind of kept it the same. As I used it, I felt like the same looks that I kind of thought of ahead of time were the looks that I felt like I could do as time went on. And then the usability or practicality, I gave it a 2 out of 3, mainly because this what I thought was like a neutral brown ended up being very much like mauve-y, pinky toned on the eye. So it pulled very pinky on me. So that for me means that like even if I did like a really glam look or a really you know, subtle look, whatever, like however I wanted to mix up these shades, they're all gonna kind of fall into the similar realm. Like they're all gonna sort of have a similar tone and color story to them. So I just don't think that as far as versatility, there's like a ton of differences there. So looking at the looks, the first look is the one that I did with in the Makeup Diaries video. I really liked this look. I used almost every shade. The only two I didn't use was Come Back Home and Three Last Words, but I used all the other shades. The shimmers are really pretty. Like if you look at that, you're like, oh, those shimmers look nice. Yeah, they were nice. The shimmers were really good and the mattes were fine. Like it's just not quite at like a 5 for me. Here was the second look I did. I did pair this palette with my Ensley Rain Cold Moon that's the shimmer. So really all you're seeing on the lid is these two mattes. But do you see what I mean? Like I blended what I thought, like I started with this one thinking I could just have this be brown, and then it didn't look brown. So then I was like, well, I might as well work the purple into it. And then yeah, it ended up just being sort of like a purpley look. So, you know, I liked it. It wasn't my favorite, but I feel like I don't like monochromatic palettes, and I feel like this ended up being more monochromatic for me than I thought it was going to be. I thought there was going to be more nuance to it, but the reason that this is still higher than the other ones is because purple is my favorite eyeshadow color. So if you're gonna lean monochromatic on any color, might as well be purple. Up next in the number 6 spot, we have the Oden'S Eye and Fancy Face collab. This is Tina's collab, the Earthwood palette. Here's what the palette looks like. It's really pretty. Gorgeous spring color story. So this is gonna have similar like stuff to the Spring Dragon palette. So the 36-month open container, cruelty-free, mica and talc. There we go, made in China, the no sandpaper texture. One thing I wanted to highlight on the packaging is, and I've said this before, I don't like when butterflies are used as like decor on things. Like I'm just not, like I don't mind butterflies in real life, but I'm not like a butterfly decor kind of girly. Like that just doesn't, it's just not me. I have my own personal reasons for that I think I talked about at some point on here, but I don't want to rehash it every time. Anyways, there are butterflies on here, but I think they're really pretty. Like this was the first time I saw something that had butterflies and I went, oh my God, that's beautiful. Like all of the different like colors of the butterflies. I don't know, there's something about it that I really do like the butterflies on here. Like I'm not like, oh, I would like this better if there were no butterflies. No, I think they look really pretty on here. I like it a lot. So I don't know, do with that what you want. They did a really good job with the butterflies on here. All right, going through the scores, obviously like I received this one in PR as well, so I don't know what the price I would have paid would have been. It's $3.08 per shade. The net weight on this one is the same as the net weight on the Spring Dragon palette. So it's the 14.5 grams or the 0.51 ounces. And is it the point, is it the ounces? I always feel like the ounces is per shade, or is that just the conversion of like grams and ounces? Hold on. Oh no, I'm such an idiot. So it's 14.5 grams or 0.51 ounces. I forgot. There's one palette where they did the weight in ounces per shade and I converted it, and I forgot that I did that on all of them. So they're all converted to either grams or ounces. That's my bad. None of this is per shade. Sorry. And then also don't have shipping time, shipping cost, etc. Okay, going to the other things. So shadow quality, blendability, gave this one a 4. I feel like these blended really nicely together. I played around with blending some different shades on here. So I'm gonna put the first look up right now. So I used the peach-y shade. We went into the brown and the medium brown and the dark brown, and then we put the mint green on the inner corner, and I just feel like I had 0 issues blending on this look. I really liked it. And then switching gears to the other look, I used just the greens up top and then the purples on bottom, and I feel like they blended really nicely as well. So no issues with blending. I wouldn't argue that these blended themselves, but they did a really nice job blending with some effort. So so 4 out of 5 for them. Well, so that was shadow quality. I also want to point out for shadow quality that as far as creasing went, there was a shade that creased really badly on me, and I can't remember which one it was. But anyways, that's where we landed on shadow quality. So between the mattes and the shimmers, the mattes blended fine. So I gave just the mattes on blendability scale 4 out of 5 because they did a good job. I just don't think they're like blending themselves. So 4 out of 5 there. For longevity, I gave it a 2 because, and which shade was it? Oh yeah, it was the green. So it was this one, Beauty, down here. I had a big old bald patch in the middle of my eye because it just faded completely throughout the day. So I did, for as far as longevity goes, give this one a 2 just because it, like, that shade was like gone. And when it's fading versus creasing, like, there's not really anything you can do. With creasing, you can maybe tap it out, but this just like disappeared and it's like was in a circle in the middle of my eye. It was weird. So anyways, that's my thought on that. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 on packaging. I debated putting it higher just because it made me like a palette that had butterflies on it, and I felt like, should I give that 5 points? Like, you know, like, you get a 5 out of 5 solely because you made something I hate look really beautiful. I don't know. Anyways, I don't hate butterflies. I feel like I should clarify that. Okay. For the formulas, 4 different formulas in here. We have a matte formula, a shimmer formula. They do say there's a metallic and then there's a multi-chrome, but I didn't feel like, I mean, maybe Moss could be the metallic, but it still feels more special than Long in the Spring Dragon palette. So I don't know. But this is for sure the multi-chrome down here. Beauty. It is pretty, but it fades very fast. As far as inspiring creativity, I gave this one a 4 out of 5 just because I feel like you could do an all neutral look, you could do something really springy, you could do something with just the greens, just the teals, just the purples, like, you could do a whole bunch. And then as I used it, I felt like I had the versatility to be able to do something that was like a little bit more neutral or a little bit more neutral adjacent and wearable for work. And then I also felt like I could do something super colorful and out of this world. And then for usability, practicality, for that exact reason, I gave it a 3 out of 3 because I think you could do a soft, really soft everyday look, or you could do something really intense and bright and colorful. So that's where that one was. Oh, and then I didn't give the score. It got an 80.65%. So, I mean, pretty solid, you know, that's a lot. I did use that palette. I have the 2 looks that I posted. Those were the 2 times I used it. So, and it took me 20 days to use every shade in the palette. And so just for your reference, it took me that long to use it twice. Okay, next up, we are going to talk about the Oden'S collab with my friend Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner, or Annette Oberstad, I think is how you say her last name. This is the Mighty Monster palette. Same thing as the Judy and Tina packaging. Like, the artwork on it is really nice. I'm very happy there's no sandpaper. Everything else, we just talked about Tina's palette, so I'm not going to repeat everything again as far as specialty info. It's all the same. But it's so pretty. Here's the inside of the palette. So for this one, it did get a slightly higher score for me on this like rating system for a few reasons. So first up, shadow quality, I would argue the same as far as like the mattes being good and the shimmers being good. There's nothing that like blew my mind as being the most amazing thing ever, so we're gonna keep that at a 4 out of 5. And then blendability, same thing as what I just talked about with Tina's palette. 4 out of 5. I felt like I could blend them darkest to lightest, lightest to darkest, mix the colors. Like, they didn't blend themselves, but they were relatively easy to blend. For longevity, I gave this one a 3 because I did have some creasing on the lid, but it was, for this one, it was slightly better than the Earthwood palette because the Earthwood, I did give this longevity one a 3 just because I didn't have any creasing or fading with this palette. So this formula felt more similar to the Judy formula. I didn't have issues with the multi-chrome creasing like I did on the Earthwood palette. So that's why this one got a 3. Packaging, 4, because I tied them all. They all have the same packaging. I don't believe these palettes are magnetic, so you just have the mirror, but I still think the packaging is really nice. So what I did think was interesting is this palette is lighter. So this palette is a net weight of 12.5 grams or 0.44 ounces. So I don't know if it's like one of the formulas she has in here doesn't weigh as much, or I'm not sure, but this palette is a little bit lighter. You have a matte, a shimmer, and a multi-chrome. Those are the different formulas they mentioned on their site, but in Annette's video, she mentioned that this shimmer up here, Electrum, is slightly different than the other shimmer shades. And so I would say like I would argue that these are shimmers. This is your multi-chrome, and then this is like almost like a toppery, like more foiled shadow. I would argue that there's like one more formula in here, but anyways, that's that on that. The usability of this, I would say, is the same as the Earthwood palette. You can do a neutral look if you want to. You can do a really colorful look if you want to. You can do a half neutral, half colorful look. Like, you could kind of do everything with this. Annette did one of my favorite looks on her video where she just did a liner with just this shade kind of used as more of like a toppery shade. And it was so pretty. And so that was just proof to me, like, you could absolutely just do a really soft look with just like the sparkles, or you can get real colorful with it. Speaking of getting real colorful, let's take a look at the looks that I did. So here's my first look. It's like purple and orange. This was what I did in my 3 looks video. And then I also did this next look that I featured in a makeup diaries video. And I will say I forced myself to put the red in the crease solely because I hate red eyeshadow. And Annette told me to get over it when she told me there was a red in the palette. And so I wanted to try it out. This red does blend out more berry than like red, like true red. So I felt like I liked that better because I like more of like a berry toned red than like a more on like the warmer side of the reds. But anyways, it was just like too dark of a shade for my personal taste in the crease, but I was just trying something different. But overall, I felt like I was sort of treated this as like a palette bingo. I just used the other 6 shades I hadn't used yet in this palette and made myself create a look. And I like the way the look came out. So I think these colors, while upon initial glance don't look like you could do a whole lot, like, not that you can't, let me rephrase that. When you look at initial glance, you go, okay, I can do a neutral look, I can do a green look, I can do a purple look, I can do a red-orange look. Like, you're kind of like, I can do these monochromatic looks. I feel like they all actually pair really well together. So you can do a purple and green look, or an orange and green look, or an orange and purple look, or a red and purple look. Like, I just think everything, like the tones of these actually complement each other super, super nicely. So I feel like you could get a lot out of this and do a lot of different things. I think I mentioned this already, but my score overall was 83.87. It took me 16 days to use every shade in this palette. You guys, this ranking was so hard because I love every single one of these palettes. Like, even the Viseart ones, I really like them. But the next 4, I'm like finding it hard to believe that there's going to be something that overthrows them by like the end of the year. But this happens every year where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to like something more. And then I always do. So this might shock some of you because in my monthly ranking, I put this higher, but I'm ranking these like in order of their, actually not in their order of their percentage, because this one should have fallen lower, but I felt uncomfortable putting it higher. Anyways. So this is the Ensley Rain Cold Moon palette. So score-wise, it's a 77.42%. So it should have landed between the Lovesick and then the 2 Oden'S Eye palettes, but I think the issues that I have with this palette, I don't care about as much. So I wanted to rank it higher. Anyways, let's talk about this. So this palette is made in China. The palette, it has mica and talc in the ingredients. It's vegan, cruelty-free, a 12-month open container, so we're quite a bit shorter than some of the other palettes that we've talked about. And magnetic pans, no mirror. What I will say about shipping is that this was packaged in like its carton, which was inside of a box with tissue, which was inside of a box with matching packaging. Like, there was like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like in a box and lots of packaging. Similar to Unearthly, it was shipped in a box that like looked like this packaging. But the quality, like the Unearthly one, like the quality on that one is so nice. This one was fine, and it was nice to have like like shipping that matches this. I think, you know, branding on the shipping is nice, is what I'm trying to say. But it was just like kind of like a normal cardboard, like, but smoother. Anyways, okay. Talking about the experience still. I paid, so I've mentioned this, and I think I mentioned this in this video that I did with this palette. Like I said, that will be linked down below. But I paid $2.22 for this palette because I think it was it $72.22 or $62.22, something like that. I don't remember the exact cost of it, but I paid $72.22, or I paid $2.22 on whatever, because when you utilize my affiliate code with Ensley Rain, I'm able to utilize the commission from the things that are sold to have store credit to put towards eyeshadow palettes. So I put the store credit to it, so I basically paid $2.22 for this. So full disclosure on that. However, if we look at the full price of the palette without any discount, the cost per shade is $3.44, which I was kind of surprised by because I feel like this brand, more than any other brand, people complain about the cost of the eyeshadows, and $3.44 per shade is not bad. It's better than a lot of what we've talked about so far. So I just wanted to point that out because, and I will say this, of their 21 pan palettes, this is one of the least expensive ones. So that's a little bit different, but still, I just like, I don't know. I feel like this brand gets a lot of hate for some stuff that pretty much every other brand is doing too. So anyways, net weight, you have 23.1 grams or 0.82 ounces. Obviously you have more shades, so it's going to weigh a little bit more. The shipping time in business days, it did take 11 business days to get to me, but I will say on their site, it says that it was going to take 15 to 20 days for shipping. I appreciate and under promise, over deliver. I feel like as a customer, that's really where, that's a sweet spot that I would like to be in. So I'm okay with that. The shipping cost, $11.72 to ship this palette to me. Listen, for my friends in Australia or any other country where you hate listening to Americans complain about shipping costs, I am not discussing shipping cost. Like, it's not a competition. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say that my shipping cost is worse than your shipping cost. Your shipping cost is terrible, okay? The purpose of discussing the shipping cost is to just show which brands are charging a lot for shipping and which ones are not charging a lot for shipping. And I don't live in Australia, so I can't speak to what the shipping cost is for things to be sent to Australia. So all I can speak about is the shipping cost that is to me. I just wanted to point that out because I cannot tell you the number of times if I mention shipping costs that I have people real upset in the comments that I dared to say that I was annoyed by an $11.72 shipping cost when they have to pay like $30 for shipping. I would be upset about paying $30 for shipping for sure. Like, I don't want to take away from that, but I don't have to pay that for where I live for these brands. So especially because, oh my God, especially because this brand ships out of Oregon. Okay, if I put up, I don't know if I will, but if I put up a US map, it ships from Oregon and I live in Arizona. It's a straight shot down. And I know they don't charge shipping based on like distance, but still, I'm just saying it's not traveling that far. Like, I live right there. How many days? It took me 39 days to use every shade in this palette, partially because this is the biggest palette, but also because a lot of the shades are sort of similar. So, you know, when I was reaching for different things, I was like, I don't want to do another like cool toned look. You know what I mean? So anyways, that was that. And I did do, I think like 4.5 looks with this palette. So I combined it, with the Wicked Widow palette. So I used it about 5 times. So you already saw the look with the Wicked Widow palette. I'm going to put the other looks up on the screen while I talk through. I don't have anything like specific on the look, so I'm just going to talk through my thoughts on like the palette overall. Shadow quality, I did give this one a 5. I did. The mattes are so good. They're so good. They work so nicely. They blend themselves almost, not quite, but they are exceptional. Like I just feel like while they don't blend themselves, because I gave them a 4 out of 5 on blending because they don't quite blend themselves, they are still softer and easier to use than the other mattes that I've talked about so far. Like, there's just something special about these mattes. They're really, really nice. Longevity of the shadow, I didn't have any creasing, and I used, like, they have some special multi-chromes in here. I had 0 creasing or fading on any look, or if I did have any creasing, it was the kind that I could easily tap out. Like, there was barely, it wasn't even a blip on the radar. And the shimmers are stunning and gorgeous. So shimmers, out of this world amazing. The mattes are top notch. I had to give overall shadow quality a 5 out of 5 because that was solid. And then, like I said, blendability was 4 out of 5, longevity 3 out of 3. Packaging. Okay, you have magnetic pans. We don't have a mirror. It is cardboard packaging, but it's a nice quality cardboard, I would argue. It feels sturdy. I gave it a 2 out of 5 because I don't like the artwork. And there is a lot of controversy around the fact that they are using like an AI service to generate their artwork versus working with artists. But putting a pin in that, not because that's not important. I spent 20 minutes pretty much talking about it in my video on this palette, but I'm putting a pin in that solely to just say, like, if I'm just looking at this, I don't like this artwork. I don't really like the like fairy vibe. It's just not for me. So because I don't really like the packaging, I gave it a 2 out of 5, which is probably why its score is so much lower than the other palettes. But for me, packaging obviously matters less than the shadow quality, which is why I ended up ranking it higher. But anyways, it's, as far as inspiring creativity, like I said, it's really, everything's gonna be cool toned, but I had a hard time like having that be like a major issue because it's not like this palette's trying to be anything but be a cool tone palette. Like, it's called Cold Moon, you know? Like, I think they went for what they were going for. Like, it's not like it's trying to act like it's this super intense, colorful palette and then it's this. It's like Cold Moon, cool tone neutrals, here you go, with some special shimmers in here. Like, it does what it's supposed to do. So as far as inspiring creativity, I did give it a 3 out of 5. Versatility, I gave a 4 out of 5. I felt like there was a little bit more nuance I could do with it than I initially thought. My one issue is that I thought this shade here was going to be a little bit more green, but it's definitely gray on the eye. So I thought I had like a sagey color to kind of make things a little bit different. It wasn't quite there, but I feel like versatility, it's 4. I did give this a palette a 3 out of 3 on usability or practicality, mainly because I think you can do a super glam look. You could do a really light look. You could do like a super fun, out of this world, like multi-chrome look. Like, I do think there's a way to make this palette be versatile and use it in different areas, arenas, events, but it's just the color story itself isn't the most, there's not the most like options to it, I guess. Does that, I don't know if that makes any sense. But anyways, next up we have the Adept Cosmetics Flying Fiddles palette. This palette also has a lower percentage and should have gone down, but I love it a lot. So it's 79.03% was like the final score, but I really like this one. So I don't know. I'm not sure if there's something I need to toggle with on the score to make that make more sense. But there's only 4 mattes in this palette, obviously. So as far as variety of looks, your matte crease can only be so many things when you just have 4 shades, but I do think there's a lot of variety in the shimmers. It's definitely a neutral palette, which I feel like limits your looks in that they're going to be neutral or neutral adjacent. You're not getting like a colorful look out of this palette. Like, if you go into it thinking you're going to get a colorful look from it, you're going to be disappointed. You can have like I did a purple and green look with it, and I feel like that turned out really pretty, but I still wouldn't argue that that was colorful. It was neutral. It was earthy. I think Alicia from Alicia's Budget Beauty, she had described it like they're very earthy toned. So it's not that you don't have color, right? You have this like bluish greenish and then the purples, but they're very like grounded colors. So it's not something super bright and colorful and intense. I like the packaging, but it's not like the most amazing packaging I've ever seen. I appreciate that Adept does something different than cardboard. They have either the faux leather or they have something like this. Like, I just appreciate that they're stepping outside the box, you know? I respect it. I also like that they have the like gold metal down here that's raised. The palette does have magnetic pans, a nice mirror. I will say that the lace design, I think it's pretty, but it's like that type of design is just not my personal favorite, so it's not doing a whole lot for me. But like I said, I still want to shout out the fact that they do something different, and I think that's really cool. What I did find interesting on their site is that this palette is made with 15% upcycled materials, and the pans are removable and made with 80% upcycled materials. So I don't know, thought that was interesting. Good to know from like a sustainability standpoint. So this palette cost $52.70 is what I paid for it. I think I used a code. And the cost per shade is $4.13. So not the highest, but not the lowest either. And the net weight is 18 grams or 0.63 ounces. So there are 15 pans. So I think that weight, it's, you know, it makes sense. Shipping time, 3 business days. Look at Adept go. I feel like they used to have slower shipping, but 3 business days? I was shocked when this palette showed up. Shipping cost was $9.50. So not the highest, not the lowest either. And then as far as different formulas, we have the matte formula, multi-chrome formula, a shimmery duochrome formula, and a shimmer. So you have basically matte, multi-chrome, duochrome, and then a standard shimmer, which I would agree with in using the palette. It took me 11 days to use every shade in this palette, and the palette is made in China, and the number of looks, I did 3.5 looks with it, so I used it 4 times because I combined it with other things. So first up, I'm gonna put the looks up. I liked all these looks, so I don't really have like thoughts to add. Actually, I'm gonna start with one look that I just wanted to mention something. So for this look, I did combine this palette with the oh no, I didn't combine it with anything. I just used a bronzer in my crease. So I used a bronzer in my crease and then just used some of the shimmers and wanted to go for like a really light look. My bronzer ended up being more cool toned than the shimmers were. I wasn't quite expecting them to be quite so like orangey, so I probably wouldn't have done that again. But I had 0 time. Like I'm just wearing concealer, like cream contour, cream blush, and like a lip oil, and then I did my brows and my eyeshadow and mascara. Like that's it. Like I didn't have a ton of time. So anyways, so wanted to point that out, but the rest of the looks I really like, so I'm gonna put those up here while I talk through kind of my rating system of the palette. So this palette, I would say I gave a 4.5 out of 5 on shadow quality because the mattes blended really beautifully. They didn't quite blend themselves, but the shimmers like totally blew my socks off, and they were just like so exceptional that I'm like, I just don't know if I can just leave this at a 4. Like it feels slightly more special than a 4. So I gave it a 4.5. Blendability, I did give a 4. Like I said, the mattes were nice. They were good. And then longevity, 3 out of 3. Usually the Adept shimmers will crease on me or fade on me. At least a couple of the shades I had very minimal creasing and fading, and it was the kind of creasing and fading that I could tap out, and really I think that only happened on one shade. I don't think I had any creasing or fading on the other ones, so I really liked it. Packaging, I gave a 3.5 out of 5, solely just like I said earlier. It's not totally my vibe, but I still think it's high quality packaging, so I didn't want to fault it too much just because it's not my personal cup of tea, but it's also my ranking, so, you know, my personal cup of tea is kind of important. Anyways, as far as inspiring creativity, I gave this one a 3 out of 5. Like I said, it's neutral adjacent. There's, you know, you're gonna kind of live in that space. For versatility, I did 3.5 out of 5. I gave it slightly more just because I do think I could do like a pinky purpley look or this like purple green situation, or you could go super neutral with it. I felt like there was a little bit more versatility to it than I initially thought as I got to use it. But overall, it's kind of, it is what it is, you know what I mean? And then usability, practicality, I said 3 because as you can see from the looks, we got a very soft neutral look. We got a very smoky glam pink look with the multi-chrome. We got a very smoky glam look with like the greens and blues and green and purple, and then we got like a very smoky intense neutral look. So I just think you can kind of run the gamut on it. You just can't do anything like neon because there is no neons in there, you know what I mean? So that is that. All right, we are almost done. We have 2 palettes left to talk about. So number 2 is going to be the Unearthly Cosmetics Dreamer palette. I really love this packaging. Oh, it's so pretty. I love it so much, the artwork on it. And then here's the inside of the palette, also gorgeous. So I ordered the entire Dreamer collection because so initially I skipped this because I had just got Sorceress Smoke and Fall Magic when the first pre-order of this went up. And I was like, I haven't even used the palettes I just bought from Unearthly before they're putting something new up. Like, I'm not buying something else. And then everybody started getting their Dreamer stuff, and I was like, having FOMO. So then I was like, shoot, okay. And so I went to buy the palette. Palette was sold out. And I was like, okay, whatever. Guess I have to order the whole collection. So I ordered the entire collection. I will say, I really liked it. I'm not mad about it. The highlighter trio in particular is one of my like new favorite makeup items, so it was a happy accident. Anyways, I say that to say I don't know how much this would have been had I just ordered the palette itself for shipping. So the shipping cost, just like, let's keep in mind that the shipping cost was for an entire collection, so it might have been more expensive. I will say the collection shipped within hours of ordering, which has never happened to me with Unearthly before, because normally I just place the pre-orders. Like that's all I ever do is their pre-orders. So to me, usually Unearthly in the back of my mind is like, they take forever to ship, but it's because I'm always pre-ordering stuff. This shipped hours later. So anyways, that impressed me. I will be honest, like, because I think I've talked about Unearthly before and I've been like, I really like their stuff, but I feel like their shipping takes too long and it's not worth it and blah, blah, blah. This experience was so much better, just like having ordered it and then it shipped right away, that I'm like, I think I'm just gonna pay attention to when stuff's like in stock for the brand, and like just know that like, I know that doing the pre-order is gonna not, I still like it because like Sorcerer's Smoke ended up being one of my favorite palettes last year still. It kind of bums me out a little bit. I don't know how to, for those of you that understand that, how does that work in the comments? Like, for some reason, having to wait for it, I feel less excited by the time it gets here. Cost, the price I paid. So I'm figuring out, I ordered the whole collection. I did use a discount code. I'm chalking this up to the cost of an individual, or I know what the cost of this palette, because they sold it separately, is. So I'm saying as if I ordered the palette on its own minus the discount code, what the cost would be. So I paid $54 for this. So this is the most expensive palette of the 10 for me from like what I paid. Obviously the Ensley Rain Cold Moon was more pricey, but I only paid $2 for it. So for me, this was the most expensive. The price per shade is $5. So higher. I think obviously the Viseart ones are still the most expensive, but definitely $5 per shadow. I will say the pans are pretty big though. But speaking of pans, let's talk about weight of the shadows, or the weight of the palette. So its net weight is 23 grams or 0.81 ounces. I think that might be the heaviest weight that we have. So it is heavier than the Cold Moon palette. Shipping time took 3 business days. This one also arrived so fast. The shipping cost was $14.53. That is the most expensive shipping of the 10. So this is on the pricier side. Like if we're talking all of the palettes, this is one of the more expensive palettes of all of them. So there we go. Shadow quality, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, solely because there was an incident with one of the shades creasing on me. And so I couldn't in good conscience give it a 5 out of 5. But the shades are so pretty, the mattes are amazing, the shimmers are so sparkly and beautiful. So 4.5 out of 5 is where we landed. Blendability, 5 out of 5. These mattes truly do blend themselves. They are so easy to use. Longevity, 2.5 out of 3, because I did have the shade that creased, but it was just one. But it did crease pretty badly, but I had a hard time faulting it when the other shades wore really well. Now, could I tell you what shade creased? I don't remember. I want to say it was this shade, Fantasy. I think it was, because these darker based multi-chrome holochromes always crease on me, so I think it was that one. Packaging, I gave 5 out of 5. Because 5 out of 5 is, this is the most unique or beautiful thing I've ever seen. They kill it. I love the artists that they collaborate with. I just think they have such an eye for like which artist to work with, and they always do such an amazing job on their packaging. It's truly beautiful. Inspires creativity, I would say, as far as inspiring creativity and versatility, I gave 4 out of 5 for both, because I think you can live in the very much neutral space, you can live in like the pink mauve space, you can go full on purple with it, you can do just a gray look with it, you can kind of cross, combine, and mix things up. I'm going to put the 2 looks up here right now that I did, so you can kind of see like one leans a little bit more neutral. I obviously brought in like hot pink liner to mix it up, and then the other we went full purple for it. So I think you can get looks that would fall into the colorful realm while also being able to do like a softer neutral look if you wanted to. This palette score overall was 83.87%, which is tied with the Oden'S Mighty Monster palette with a net. So both palettes obviously really great quality. I did do 2 looks with this palette, so I reached for it the 2 times. There are 12 shades. It took me 18 days to use every shade. The palette is made in China, and I think that's it. Moving along to the last palette. Can you guess which palette is going to be number 1? I'm already kind of holding it in screen, so you probably can see it. Number 1 palette is the Nomad Cosmetics New Zealand Stargazing palette. I know, it surprised me too, but I used this palette fast. So it took me, I did 3 looks with this palette, and it took me 3 days to use every shade in this palette. So basically, I got this palette and then immediately used it back to back to back. Did every, yeah. Anyways, I think I did I post a 3 looks video with it? That probably was part of it. But anyways, long story short, obviously I just wanted to keep using this. So there are 15 shades in the palette. This palette is made at the Nomad lab in China, so I believe they have a dedicated lab. One thing that I always like to mention with Nomad is that the brand for each of their launches contributes to some sort of cause related to the destination. So they contributed to the Dark Sky International, like for every palette purchased, that of these palettes that are purchased, they're contributing to Dark Sky International, which protects our park so that we can stargaze, you know? I thought that was nice. Cruelty-free and vegan. They have no parabens, no phthalates, no mineral oil, no talc, and no gluten. Mica is an ingredient, but that's that. 12-month open container. It is a pressed pigment, so some shades are under the US FDA guidelines, not intended for use around the eye area. I know some of you have sensitive eyes, so just want to make sure that you know that. For me, I don't have any issues with using those kinds of shadows. That's not like a sensitivity issue that I have, so just wanted to say that. I feel like the packaging is really cool. You guys know I love a space theme, so I really like the packaging. Let's get into the looks and the ratings, shall we? So the 3 looks, I think I did do the 3 looks videos. So you've seen these 3 looks if you've watched that video, but in case you haven't, let's go through them. I'm not going to talk through the looks. I'm just going to talk through like my thoughts while I show the looks. Okay, you get what I'm saying. So shadow quality, I gave this a 4 out of 5. I felt like the shimmers were nice, like, and all the shimmers in this palette are multi-chromes. I felt like they were really nice. I didn't have any issues with creasing or fading, and I was worried because these were super smooth, so I was like, oh no. If you're giving me a really smooth eyeshadow, it's probably going to come off of my eyelid soon. But they didn't, so I thought that was nice. I will say the mattes were fine. I don't think they're the most amazing mattes that I have in my collection, but they're also not bad. They're good. Like, they're good mattes. Like, similar to the Oden'S and all the other mattes I've talked about, where it's like, they're solid. They are good mattes, but they don't blend themselves. So blendability, I gave a 4 out of 5, but that's what gave the overall shadow quality a 4 out of 5 as well. Longevity, I gave 3 out of 3 because, like I said, no creasing, nothing. Fading, we're good. Packaging, I gave 4 out of 5. I think it's really beautiful, but it's not like the most unique thing that I've ever seen. So, you know, there's no shade on that. I feel like Nomad's done better packaging, so I think that's part of it too, but that's that. The price I paid for this palette, and I can't remember if I used a code or if they had codes. Anyways, I paid $53.19. That has to be the price after a code, but $53.19. So it's slightly less expensive than the Unearthly palette with the code by like 81 cents, but there's 15 shades in this one, whereas there's 12 in the other one. The net weight on this one is 22.5 grams or 0.75 ounces, but like we just talked about with the Unearthly Cosmetics one, it weighs a little bit more. So you're getting more shadows. This is 15 pans versus 12 pans, but the pan size in the Unearthly palette, you're getting more product per pan. Just to clarify that. Okay. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned the Unearthly palette is magnetic as well. Okay. I learned that all of the Unearthly palettes were magnetic. Anywho, going back to this palette. The cost per shade is $3.93, so kind of right in the middle of the other prices we've talked about. And shipping time, 5 business days to get to me, so not bad. And shipping cost, $0. We had some free shipping, baby. Whoop, whoop. So I shout out to Nomad because I don't want to pay for shipping. Anyways, we have two formulas, the matte shadows or the multi-chromes. I don't know if I was talking through the formulas on the other one. Sorry if I skipped it. Oh well. As far as inspiring creativity, I feel like and versatility of this, I feel like 4 out of 5. I feel like I can see different looks. You can definitely go more neutral with it. You can go more pinky with it. You can kind of go like the blue purpley route. I just think there's like a lot of different things you can do, and every look I've seen people do with this palette is so stunning, and it's like just a perpetual folder of things that I'm saving to go, oh, I want to recreate that, I want to recreate that, I want to recreate that. So I think this palette is beautiful, and it took the top spot with a score of 83.87%. I think that's it. That was everything. I'm sorry this video was probably the longest video in the entire history of videos, but I wanted to give as much detail on these palettes as possible because I don't feel like I can ever give like a full in-depth review, except for, I mean, I pretty much did when I did the Nomad 3 looks. I was able to give all of my same thoughts that I just gave today, but you get what I mean. Most of the time I'm not posting like a full in-depth review from like top to bottom, everything you need to know. So I hope these videos kind of become like a one-stop shop for everything you want to know about the palettes. It is hard to test palettes thoroughly when you're buying as much makeup as I buy, but we will see what happens moving forward. But anyways, let me know what you thought about this video down below. Like I said, I did post a video kind of going through like what's important, or like what I have on my spreadsheet, what I don't. So if there's things that you care about to hear in the reviews or you think would be helpful, let me know in the comments down below, because I want to make sure that I'm including all the information that people care about. I know that there's probably plenty of information I went through that you don't care about, but other people do. So just be mindful of that. And with that, I will see you all next time. Bye!